everyone, this is Dave. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, today we'll be going over the latest Rocket Lab updates for you. But before we dive into that, I did just need to thank our newest channel members. So thank you to Peter Babington, Todd Anderson, and Colin S. White for joining. And thank you so much for the support. Not too sure if I had the chance to add your names to that intro screen, but if I didn't get to it before this video, you guys will be on there for the next one. And thank you so much for keeping me going with this channel, really much appreciated. Now, before we dive into the video, please do like, subscribe, comment, all that YouTube jazz. It's all very helpful for continuing to grow the channel. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Rocket Lab updates. As usual, we'll start off with the stock, and today we can see that it is a down day for sure for Rocket Lab, and over the past week it's been pretty significantly down as we're coming off of those $50 plus highs down to about 43.84 cents right now. Zooming out a little bit further though, you can see things are still looking very good for the company. Obviously it was sub $20 back in April and we're at 43. So I'm not complaining at all. And I did just want to point out something. Sorry for, I guess, tooting my own horn here, but I did take some flack for this tweet. People seem to think I was an idiot. I basically said that stupid promote thing in the way. I'm starting to feel like this run for Rocket Lab is finally running out of steam. I said that on July 17th, and now on the 17th, we're looking at right here. Yeah, that's the 17th. So 51.33. And some people said I was an idiot on X, but what's new? Because people will tell you you're an idiot there no matter what you say. Anyway, it's been down since then. Now we're at 43.82. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, I guess. Yeah, we'll see how this continues. I think a lot of us were expecting a pullback after such a huge run. Pretty healthy for a stock to have a pullback after something like this, because generally if something goes parabolic for too long, what you will expect is a crash, and it's not really a healthy stock movement. Anyway, always interested to hear your thoughts on where the stock is going to move over the next several weeks if you do follow the technicals and that sort of thing. Okay, continuing on, obviously the biggest news is these photos Rocket Lab shared of Launch Complex 3 nearing completion. They look really amazing, and I was very excited to see it. So this is the Launch Complex, and it's really coming together. Launch mount here, flame diverter here. You got some, pressure tanks over here for, obviously I'm not an expert, but you can check out Captain D2 for his full walkthrough of the pad. But we have probably liquid nitrogen and oxygen and methane, I would imagine, and a lot of equipment really coming together, and quite amazing stuff. This one from a little further out, and the electron pad is right nearby as well. And yeah, zooming in even further, this shot I thought was really cool just to get a closer look. And I love the design of the flame diverter here. You don't usually see the kind of lid on top. Very cool looking indeed. I did also share for comparison a tweet Rocket Lab sent out on March 27th. This was the state of the launch pad then. We had some concrete in the ground. We had some tanks. We did have the launch stand here, launch mount, but there was still a lot of work to be done. And in just a few months, there has been a ton of progress at this site. So very exciting. And the launch infrastructure, launch pad, is not an item I'm worried about at all for Neutron being ready to fly. So that is one less thing I think investors have to worry about, because this thing is looking really good. I don't think it's completely done yet, obviously. I think we should see a stage 2 test stand here pretty soon. And obviously work still being done with cranes and stuff like that, but not really worried. And I haven't been worried for quite some time about the launch infrastructure as being a bottleneck for Neutron's launch. This was a pretty cool picture from No Life Jordan. He just kind of photoshopped in what Neutron will look like on the pad. And excited to see it in real life, hopefully towards the end of the year. So this is the actual stage 2 test stand where they would do test firings of the second stage rocket. I believe this is just down the road right now from that launch site. But if we go to the picture here, that I believe is where it will eventually be installed, and they will, fuel up that second stage and fire the engine to make sure everything's good on that front. So pretty excited from these pictures. Let me know your thoughts on them, as always, down below. Continuing on, not a huge deal, I don't think, but we did have some chatter about a 13G filing from BlackRock, where they basically report how much percent of the company they own. And we can see in this most recent filing, they own about 4.8%. And the reason people were talking about it is if you go back previously to, say, November, it was more like 6%. So there's been some, I suppose, relatively significant trimming from BlackRock there, but doesn't bother me in the least. I think when you had a run like this, this position just becomes more heavier weighted in their fund than they, are targeting, because these are usually index funds trying to track the performance of a certain market segment. So if a individual company becomes too large a portion of that, of course, they'll have to sell off. And that's generally a sign that that company is doing well. So yeah, that is just anyway what we saw, some selling apparently from BlackRock there. Continuing on, Blue Origin started to talk a little bit lately about the launch of the 2 Escapade spacecraft built by Rocket Lab to head to Mars for NASA. Very excited to see those guys launch. And they did confirm that NG2 will be sending the Escapade missions. That's the next mission for Blue Origin. And still a bit of a ways to go for the rocket, but nice to get that confirmation. They'll be attempting to launch that this year on their New Glenn rocket. Rocket Lab likewise tweeting about these spacecraft, saying that they are currently undergoing routine checkups and testing, and they're getting ready for their return to Florida in order to get launched to Mars. So really hope these guys do get launched. I do think that the new kind of mission profile is a little bit less ideal, and that it'll take quite longer for them to get there. I think they may have to hang out by a Lagrange point for a little while or something like that. I know another YouTube channel made a great video on it. I think it might have been the space race. But yeah, anyway, they will get launched hopefully this year by Blue Origin. I'm not expecting an August launch, just from some of the tweets we've seen about their progress. I know they were talking about their next launch being in August, but personally, I would think, few months later than that, but that's just me. Okay, so now there has been a lot of talk lately about Rocket Lab actually getting some of the large structural pieces of the first Neutron rocket to its launch and integration site to, get ready to go and do the testing. Going forward, long term, they will be building out most of Neutron at their Maryland facility, but these initial pieces where we saw some testing in New Zealand and stuff like that, and we were told these were flight articles, so I think these have been shipped, is my understanding from New Zealand, these initial articles. There has been a bit of trouble getting some of these items to the pad, which I think, Rocket Lab did expect, and none of this is a huge shock to them. So basically, they had quite a while back asked regulators for permission to dredge a channel. And if you look at the map here, this is kind of the channel they'll need to dredge the bottom of to make it deeper and allow those barges to get through to where they need to go. That was approved by Virginia Marine Resources Commission, but it has not yet been approved by the U.S. Army Corps engineers. So Virginia has approved it. We're waiting on Army Corps of Engineers to give the final go-ahead on the dredging. Now, since Rocket Lab is still waiting for dredging, they are asking for permission to use a method called kedging to get their hardware on schedule at the site in September. So that's an interesting timeline for you. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about the timelines afterwards, but let's go over this in more detail. Kedging basically is using a ton of ropes and anchors to pull the craft forward, from what I understand, and get it through waters that would usually be too shallow for them to just, drive the boat through normally. Yeah, series of anchors and lines to steer the barge through normal waters, and they're waiting for permission on that. I do believe Rocket Lab has also submitted requests as kind of a backup to be able to beach barges on a beach nearby. So if for some reason they didn't get approval to kedge, they would just literally drive these barges up to a beach and unload on the beach. But yeah, this is just stuff for the first launch to get this first articles on site, but it shouldn't be a long-term problem once they're manufacturing from Maryland and hopefully, get this thing dredged out. So we did dive a little deeper and see some of the documentation on this request to dredge the canal. And, if you guys are interested in checking it out, you can find it on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers website. And some of the concerns involved with that. But ultimately, I'm not super concerned about this getting approved. It's already been approved by Virginia, and there do seem to be workarounds if there's any issues with the dredging. But a lot of focus nowadays on cutting red tape and being pro business, pro innovation. So I wouldn't expect tons of problems. And the other thing I pointed out is it kind of says the schedule is by September to get these large pieces of Neutron, these structural pieces, to the facility for basically putting them all together. So if we think about the timeline for Neutron's launch, if this means they are getting the pieces of Neutron there in sometime in September, there's still several things that need to be done, right? I think the launch complex is looking very good. So even though that's not turned green yet on the tracker, in my head, that's almost certainly green. They need to obviously assemble the whole thing. I think they need to do some pressure testing on stage 1. They need to do a hot fire on stage 1. I think they probably need to do a hot fire on stage 2 as well on that test stand that we looked at previously. Then they need to put the stage 2 into the stage 1, fuel up the whole thing, do a full wet dress rehearsal on the test stand there. After you have the wet dress rehearsal done, then they will be ready for launch. By the way, thank you to Jacob and Stamo for sharing the links to these permits. Great guys in the community doing a ton of research on space stocks, and I'd highly recommend you check out Space Stocks Weekly on X, hosted by Jacob, if you want a more casual discussion format for investors who like investing in space companies such as us. Okay, so continuing on, I missed this one in my previous video just barely, so it is a little bit older news now. My last Rocket Lab updates video was the 17th, and this came out on the 19th, so you might already be aware of it, but Rocket Lab did sign a new haste customer. And usually this wouldn't be that big a deal, but I thought it was quite interesting that it is from basically the EU and France. So we haven't seen a ton of haste launches for people outside the US previously, and it could be a good sign of potentially more things to come, more demand from the EU in general. In France, I do remember a long time ago in a interview, Peter Beck spoke about most likely seeing haste launch from somewhere other than Virginia at some point in the future. So I don't know if that would be Europe at some point. Not saying this one will launch from Europe, but it's just nice to see demand from other places outside of the US. Although demand within the US has obviously certainly been robust for haste lately with the Kratos MACH-TB contract and some other contracts. So yeah, that one was an exciting one. Obviously still a ways away. The goal of this demonstrator will be to achieve a suborbital flight at Mach 12 by 2027. And yeah, looking forward to that. So Next up, I did just want to mention that the Rocket Lab Q2 earnings call is scheduled for August 7th at 5 p.m., coming up pretty quick. And of course, I will be live streaming that here. So if you want to watch it with me and, talk about our thoughts afterwards live, then just hang out as well. Yeah, feel free to come by at August 7th at 5 p.m. Should be pretty fun. And man, I'm so nerdy talking about having fun watching the earnings calls, live streams. Anyway, next up, we've been seeing Peter Beck making the rounds lately on the political circuit, talking to fairly high-profile individuals like this Senator Kevin Cramer tweeted about meeting with Peter Beck and, talking with the company. A lot of people made a big deal about the fact that Peter was wearing a tie because he infamously doesn't like to wear, suits and ties unless it's a really big deal, as something people have pointed out. So I'm not going to say that is some kind of proof of something brewing, but yeah, some people, think that's a good sign. Certainly a lot going on lately with the SDA program and Golden Dome in general. And then another one here with Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, who also spoke to Peter Beck, as well as other leaders. Finally, it does look like we have a new potential launch date for that Jake mission, which is a haste mission from Wallops, and it did get delayed previously, but Wallops Vantage, who definitely has a good eye on the Wallops launch site, noticed that they have added a nav warding back to the map, starting July 31st, and that profile pretty well matches a haste launch. So it could be that we'll see another haste launch no earlier than July 31st at 9:45 p.m. Just in terms of the Golden Dome, I know we're all anxious to get some more details on what this thing is going to look like and, how much potential business there could be for Rocket Lab and others in it. So it was reported recently that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has 60 days to deliver an initial system design and 120 days to present a full implementation plan, including satellite and ground station details. So sounds like we're within at least 60 days of getting some more details of what the Golden Dome entails, although just because the Secretary of Defense delivers it to his superiors doesn't necessarily mean we'll find out all about that immediately. But certainly want to know how this thing will work, how it will fit with the SDA program, and what opportunities there may be for Rocket Lab in more concrete terms. Okay, so that will do it for today. Let me know, as always, any of your thoughts about those news stories we went over, or if there's any news stories I missed and you think are worth a mention, let me know down below, and I'll be sure to check out your comments there. Always interested in hearing your thoughts about the stock and any trades you may be making as well. Hope you guys have a great day, a great rest of the week. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel, and I will see you soon for the next video. Bye for now.